Hey everyone, welcome back to Sky Factory. This will be, I believe, edition 4.
Welcome back
All of
to Sky
the music that
Factory.
you will
This
be
will be,
hearing
I believe.
on the, well, not really music, but spoken word poetry that you'll be hearing on
When
the
I was a
stream
kid,
today can be found on a
I hid
playlist
my
that I
heart
will
under the
link in
bed
the
because my mother said
description.
if you're not careful, someday
But
someone's gonna break
this
it.
is going to be
Take it from me, under the bed is
pretty
not a good
much a
hiding spot.
maintenance one. I got a list of
I
things
know
that I
because I've
kind
been
of want
shot
to
down so many
get
times I get
taken care
altitude
of.
sickness just from standing up for myself.
So, enjoy.
But that's what we were told. Stand up for yourself. That's hard to do if you don't know who you are. We were expected to define ourselves at such an early age. And if we didn't do it, others did it for us. Geek, fatty, slut, fag. And at the same time we were being told what we were being asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always thought that was an unfair question. It presupposes that we can't be what we already are. We were kids. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a man. I wanted a registered retirement savings plan that would keep me in candy long enough to make old age sweet. When I was a kid, I wanted to shave. Now, not so much. When I was 8, I wanted to be a marine biologist. When I was 9, I saw the movie Jaws and thought to myself, no thank you. When I was 10, I was told that my parents left because they didn't want me. When I was 11, I wanted to be left alone. When I was 12, I wanted to die. When I was 13, I wanted to kill a kid. When I was 14, I was asked to seriously consider a career path. I said, I'd like to be a writer. And they said, choose something realistic. So I said, professional wrestler. And they said, don't be stupid. See, they asked me what I wanted to be, then told me what not to be. And I wasn't the only one. We were being told that we somehow must become what we are not, sacrificing what we are to inherit the masquerade of what we will be. I was being told to accept the identity that others will give me. And I wonder what made my dreams so easy to dismiss. Granted, my dreams are shy because they're Canadian. My dreams are self-conscious and overly apologetic. They're standing alone at the high school dance and they've never been kissed. See, my dreams got called names too. Silly, foolish, impossible. But I kept dreaming. I was going to be a wrestler. I had it all figured out. I was going to be the garbage man. My finishing move was going to be the trash compactor. My saying was going to be, I'm taking out the trash. And then this guy, Duke the Dumpster Drosy, stole my entire shtick. I was crushed, as if by a trash compactor. I thought to myself, what now? Where do I turn? Poetry. Like a boomerang, the thing I loved came back to me. One of the first lines of poetry I can remember writing was in response to a world that demanded I hate myself. From age 15 to 18, I hated myself for becoming the thing that I loathed, a bully. When I was 19, I wrote, I will love myself despite the ease with which I lean toward the opposite. Standing up for yourself doesn't have to mean embracing violence. When I was a kid, I traded in homework assignments for friendship, then gave each friend a late slip for never showing up on time, and in most cases, not at all. I gave myself a hall pass to get through each broken promise. And I remember this plan born out of frustration from a kid who kept calling me Yogi, then pointed to my tummy and said, too many picnic baskets. Turns out it's not that hard to trick someone. And one day before class, I said, yeah, you can copy my homework. And I gave him all the wrong answers that I'd written down the night before. He got his paper back expecting a near-perfect score and couldn't believe it when he looked across the room at me and held up a 0. I knew I didn't have to hold up my paper of 28 out of 30, but my satisfaction was complete when he looked at me puzzled, and I thought to myself, smarter than the average bear, motherfucker. This is who I am. This is how I stand up for myself. When I was a kid, I used to think that pork chops and karate chops were the same thing. I thought they were both pork chops. Because my grandmother thought it was cute and because they were my favorite, she let me keep doing it. Not really a big deal. One day, before I realized fat kids are not designed to climb trees, I fell out of a tree and bruised the right side of my body. I didn't want to tell my grandmother about it because I was scared I'd get in trouble for playing somewhere I shouldn't have been. A few days later, the gym teacher noticed the bruise and I got sent to the principal's office. From there, I was sent to another small room with a really nice lady who asked me all kinds of questions about my life at home. I saw no reason to lie. As far as I was concerned, life was pretty good. I told her whenever I'm sad, my grandmother gives me karate chops. This led to a full-scale investigation, and I was removed from the house.
This is
for
going to
3
be
days.
a house.
So they finally
I'll
decided
do
to ask
all of
how
my
I got the
crafting and
bruises.
stuff.
News of this silly little story quickly spread through the school, and I earned my first nickname, Pork Chop. To this day, I hate pork chops. I'm not the only kid who grew up this way, surrounded by people who used to say that rhyme about sticks and stones, as if broken bones hurt more than the names we got called, and we got called them all. So we grew up believing no one would ever fall in love with us, that we'd be lonely forever, that we'd never meet someone to make us feel like the sun was something they built for us in their tool shed. So broken heartstrings bled the blues, we tried to empty ourselves so we'd feel nothing. Don't tell me that hurts less than a broken bone. That an ingrown life is something surgeons can cut away, that there's no way for it to metastasize. It does. She was 8 years old, our first day of grade 3 when she got called ugly. We both got moved to the back of class so we would stop getting bombarded by spitballs. But the school halls were a battleground. We found ourselves outnumbered day after wretched day. We used to stay inside for recess because outside was worse. Outside, we'd have to rehearse running away or learn to stay still like statues, giving no clues that we were there in grade 5. They taped a sign to the front of her desk that read, "Beware of dog." To this day, despite a loving husband, she doesn't think she's beautiful because of a birthmark that takes up a little less than half her face. Kids used to say she looks like a wrong answer that someone tried to erase but couldn't quite get the job done. And they'll never understand that she's raising 2 kids whose definition of beauty begins with the word mom. Because they see her heart before they see her skin, because they've never always been amazing. He was a broken branch grafted onto a different family tree. Adopted. Not because his parents opted for a different destiny. He was 3 when it became a mixed drink of 1 part left alone and 2 parts tragedy. Started therapy in 8th grade. Had a personality made up of tests and pills. Lived like the uphills were mountains and the downhills were cliffs. 4/5 suicidal, a tidal wave of antidepressants, and an adolescent being called pauper. 1 part because of the pills, 99 parts because of the cruelty. He tried to kill himself in grade 10 when a kid who could still go home to mom and dad had the audacity to tell him, "Get over it." As if depression is something that could be remedied by any of the contents found in a first aid kit. To this day, he has a stick of TNT lit from both ends, could describe to in detail the way the sky bends in a moment before it's about to fall. And despite an army of friends who all call him an inspiration, he remains a conversation piece between people who can't understand. Sometimes being drug-free has less to do with addiction and more to do with sanity. We weren't the only kids who grew up this way. To this day, kids are still being called names. The classics were, "Hey stupid," "Hey spaz." Seems like every school has an arsenal of names getting updated every year. And if a kid breaks into school and no one around chooses to hear it, they make a sound. They're just background noise from a soundtrack stuck on repeat when people say things like, "Kids can be cruel." Every school was a big top circus tent. And the pecking order went from acrobats to lion tamers, from clowns to carnies, all of these miles ahead of who we were. We were freaks. Lobster claw boys and bearded ladies. Oddities, juggling depression and loneliness, playing solitaire, spin the bottle, trying to kiss the wounded parts of ourselves and heal. But at night, while the others slept, we kept walking the tightrope. It was practice, and yes, some of us fell. But I want to tell them that all of this is just debris left over when we finally decide to smash all the things we thought we used to be. And if you can't see anything beautiful about yourself, get a better mirror. Look a little closer, stare a little longer, because there's something inside you that made you keep trying despite everyone who told you to quit. You built a cast around your broken heart and signed it yourself. You signed it, they were wrong. Because maybe you didn't belong to a group or a clique. Maybe they decided to pick you last for basketball or everything. Maybe you used to bring bruises and broken teeth to show and tell but never told. Because how can you hold your ground if everyone around you wants to bury you beneath it? You have to believe that they were wrong. They have to be wrong. Why else would we still be here? We grew up learning to cheer on the underdog because we see ourselves in them. We stem from a root planted in the belief that we are not what we were called. We are not abandoned cars stalled out and sitting empty on some highway. And if in some way we are, don't worry, we only got out to walk and get gas. We are graduating members from the class of we made it. Not the faded echoes of voices crying out names will never hurt me. Of course, they did. But our lives will only ever always continue to be a balancing act that has less to do with pain and more to do with beauty.
Last night, I had the most interesting dream. In it, I was 6 years old in a national spelling bee. Genius. Complex words like serendipity, duodenum,
Hey, Midori, how's it going?
Pilification, all spelled correctly. Up until the final round, one word between me and victory. Spellmaster clears his throat. Young man, your word is father. The crowd began to chatter amongst themselves, seemingly displeased at the simplicity of this final word. So I searched the audience for those eyes that say everything's gonna be okay, just do it. I realized I dazed off. Young man, your word is father. So I stood up straight, licked my lips, and began. Father, M-O-T-H-E-R. Spellmaster looks at me.
Seems like you guys are going to be playing D&D for a while, but that's good.
Sorry, but you're
You guys got a good campaign going?
Excuse me? I'm sorry, son, but you are incorrect. Well, then you, sir, can save your sorry apologies because you must mean incorrect as within the box of being right. Let me explain something to you because obviously you ain't grow up where poppers are rolling stones down the hills of women's backsides, and when he's gone, all he's left us was alone. We're minstrel around on bikes and fathers garments. The minstrel.
So that good. That's good. It seems like you guys are going to be playing D&D a while.
It looks something like this. Breastfeeding with one arm, phone on the shoulder, cook with one arm, cleaning with one leg, tying sneakers with their teeth. Fathers who could have aborted us or put us up for adoption but opted to carry us, deliver us, raise us to be better than they ever were and do better than they ever did. Young fathers who make mistakes because we're not all perfect. But the one mistake they never make is abandoning their seeds. You see, fathers are master gardeners. They tend to every leaf, removing the weeds, placing us in the windows of opportunity so that we can lean towards the sun and never forget that the sky is the limit. Planting kisses on our cheeks, hugs on our backs, growing their love on us the best way they know how. Like my father sacrificed having nothing so that I can have everything. My father walked a daily nightmare so that I can live my dreams. My father watered me with blood, sweat, and tears so that I can be ripe for the harvest, and I hope that one day I'll be as great of a father as she was for me. You did not ask me. You did not ask me to spell deadbeat, sir. But if you like that beat, here it is. FATHERD, DAD, POP, POPS. If you like the slang, you ask me to spell father. And where I'm from, father is, always has been, always will be spelled MOTHER. So open your encyclopedias, Google it, show me your flashcards, and open your dictionaries. Because what Webster says means nothing around here, My father's sitting right there, and I love her.
Alright, takeout leaves first. Got it.
My school was fairly progressive. They even taught contraception in our sex ed class.
When I was 14, my dad handed me a box of condoms and said, you know how to use these, right?
We were taught which preventative methods were the most effective.
I was in Texas, so dad's with shotguns.
And where to go if something broke, what to take, how to fix this mess you'd gotten yourself in. We were taught about herpes and gonorrhea and syphilis and how to keep all your fluids to yourself.
My friends taught me which clinics wouldn't tell my parents.
Which ones handed out free condoms.
But I was never taught that there are worse things that could happen than a baby or a disease.
Yeah, we learned about roofies.
We learned to respect when a woman says no.
We learned about protecting your drink, carrying pepper spray.
We learned what to do when a woman is assaulted, but not that this could happen to me.
I was a virgin when I was raped for the first time.
When it happened to me, it was 10 a.m. and my parents were home. My textbook hadn't described the way I wouldn't even try to fight. There was no paragraph for how to stop her without making a scene.
There was no worksheet for how to stop him without waking my sleeping parents.
There was no correct answer to her threats of suicide when I wasn't in the mood.
There was no manual for the polite victim.
You know,
no,
it wasn't like they said it'd be.
I was sober. He was sober. We were 17.
15.
They didn't teach me that I wouldn't know how to protect myself.
That my lungs would close up and we would make pretend husband and wife, make pretend love. The thing about pretend is that it flattens everything to one color. It makes it too simple.
It makes it one syllable, and
that syllable is always captioned as a yes. They didn't teach me that I could want to be with someone, but not always want them.
That being curious about sex doesn't mean I was asking for it.
What I learned was that I was supposed to want it.
I was supposed to feel stolen. I was supposed to feel like less of a human being.
I learned that if you don't scream, no one will listen to you. They don't write about the ones that got away.
I learned that foundation comes in 14 different shades.
No one wants to hear
that your skin is changing color.
So this is a playlist I have of motivational music or poetry, and it's just stuff that I've gathered around YouTube of really good spoken word poetry.
I don't want to blame her.
I don't want to blame my church or my mother or even the boy.
We were just children.
But this is preventable, so
someone must be responsible for preventing it. We can teach this better. Some paintings are built from 1,000 points of color.
If you stand too close, a sunset becomes just a series of red dots.
We teach that rape is always a man in an alley.
Always a clenched jaw and a closed fist.
Always a stained white shirt.
But I never used my pepper spray.
I never had to worry about an uncle or a locker room.
Do not confuse one story for all stories. Do not stare at a red dot and say,
the whole painting is just one color.
Give it up for the group piece. How to love your introvert. 1. We introverts are not always the best at breaking the ice, so in order to get the ball rolling, we often have to resort to tactics that may seem obscure to your average extrovert. This may include subtle clearings of the throat, gentle hand gesturing, and numbers placed carefully into routine conversations where they normally do not belong. 2. You may be asking yourself, how can I be sure that I'm speaking to an actual introvert and not someone simply masquerading as one? Well, here are a few telltale signs. If the person wraps their arms around your shoulder as they're introducing themselves to you for the first time, probably not an introvert. If the person uses the words unwind and nightclub in the same sentence, Probably not an introvert. If the person attempts to engage in any conversation whatsoever about the weather and they are not from Minnesota, probably not an introvert. 3, to set the record straight, I do not hate people, but I do get pretty damn tired of them sometimes. Let's pretend for a second that my desire to socialize could be equated to my desire to exercise. This means that a quick jog around the block will be a lot like catching a cup of coffee with a friend. Bar hopping with buddies be like finishing a 6-minute mile, and my senior prom was a little bit like running the Ironman in the middle of August. Now, you see, I don't hate talking to people any more than I hate a little bit of exercise, but you wouldn't challenge an Olympian to a marathon after he just finished a race. Understand that when I tell you I can't hang out tonight, I just came back from a poetry jam, maybe it's not because I hate you, maybe it's because I'm tired. 4, there will be many times when you will be uncomfortable in my silence, unsure of how I'm feeling. Understand that just because I do not wear my heart on my sleeve for everyone to see does not mean that it beats any softer than yours. Do not confuse the stillness of lips with the rhythm of apathy. Do not confuse the sound of words rattling off 80 beats per minute with the music of an actual conversation. Just because I cannot commit the act of small talk does not mean I don't have huge things to say. Just because I find peace within myself does not mean that I could ever stop wanting to love so hard. Because 5, we introverts are not always the best at breaking the ice, so we often have to resort to tactics that may seem obscure to your average extrovert. This may include subtle clearings of the throat, gentle hand gesturing, and writing an entire poem just to say 6. I love you more than quiet trips to the library. I love you more than canceling Friday night plans, baby. Baby, I love you more than Tumblr. But when the world is shouting far too loudly for us to hear our own voices, and when these words cling far too tightly to my own chest, I just want you to know that I love you. I love you. I love you.
The Minecraft world, or just the world I live in general?
Phrase, man up. 1, fuck you. 2, if you want to question my masculinity, like a schoolyard circle of curses, like a sword fight with lightsaber erections, save your breath, because contrary to what you may believe, not every problem can be solved by growing a pair. You cannot arm wrestle your way out of chemical depression. The CEO of the company that just laid you off does not care how much you bench, and I promise there is no light beer in the universe full-bodied enough to make you love yourself. 3, oh, man up. Yeah, that's that new superhero, right? Mild-mannered supplement salesman Mark transforms to the magic words man up and then transforms into the 5 o'clock shadow. The massively muscled, deep-voiced leather duster wearing Superman who defends the world from, I don't know, feelings. 4, of course, why fight to remove our chains when we can simply compare their lengths? Why step outside the box when the box has these badass flame decals on it? We men are cigarettes, dangerous and poisonous and stupid. 5, you ever notice when nobody ever says woman up? They just imply it. Because women and the women's movement figured out a long time ago that being directly, explicitly ordered around by commercials, magazines, and music is dehumanizing. When will men figure that out? 6, the phrase man up suggests that competence and perseverance are uniquely masculine traits. That women, not to mention any man who doesn't eat steak, drive a big truck, and have lots of sex with women, are nothing more than background characters, comic relief, props. More than anything, though, it suggests that to be yourself, whether you...
Thank you. I'm actually doing a lot of maintenance in it today when I build a house to put a bunch of this stuff in. The garden's going to be expanded and worked on. Find an area to build a farm, start making some animals.
But we also teach them how to raise that skin like a flag and draw blood for it. 8, Boy babies get blue socks. Girl babies get pink socks. What about purple? What about orange? What about green? What about cerulean, black, tie-dyed, buffalo plaid, rainbow? I want to be free to express myself. Man up. I want to have meaningful emotional relationships with my brothers. Man up. I want to be weak sometimes. Man up. I want to be strong in a way that isn't about physical power or dominance. Man up. I want to talk to my son about something other than sports. Man up. I want to be who I am. Man up. 10. No.
Thank you. Being born without arms and doing a lot of public speaking, you run into some real peculiar situations. And being in this room today with all these men and women in uniforms remind me of one of those funny situations. A number of years ago, I was speaking for the Defense Logistics Agency in Colorado Springs at a total quality management conference with all top military brass. The MC for the day was a commander of a Triton nuclear submarine, a battle-hardened Navy captain prepared for all types of contingencies. And the room was well set, the sound was optimal, the lighting was bright, and he gets me up on stage and gives me a handheld microphone. So much for naval intelligence. I thought you'd all appreciate that. Seeing this guy up here without any arms and these empty sleeves, there's probably a lot of things going through your mind about right now. You may be wondering, how does this guy do it? How does he do the day-to-day things in his life that I sometimes have problems doing with my own 2 hands and 10 fingers? The answer to most of those questions that may be going through your mind is that I use my feet for everything that you use your hands for. There's not a special school anywhere in the world that you can go to learn how to use your feet. It's just that the human body, with the power of the human mind, has an incredible capacity to adapt. I've learned in my life that there really are no unsolvable problems in this world of ours. There just are an awful lot of problems in life that haven't been solved yet. Cheers.
Jacko's here?
Ladies and gentlemen, I have had the wonderful privilege for nearly the last 25 years to work all over the world. I have literally worked with everyone from firemen to florists, from politicians to prisoners. Well, okay, that was the same group. After all, we are in Illinois. And in all those years of traveling, something interesting happens to me wherever I seem to go in the U.S. I often get the same question. People want to know what is the correct, proper, sensitive word to describe someone in my situation. I mean, is this a handicap? Is it a disability? Am I physically challenged? Do I have special needs? What is it? Folks, I don't get into the labels, but if you would insist that I give you a word that I think accurately describes my situation, I would have to give you the word condition. See, I've become convinced through my travels that every one of us wrestles with some type of a condition in our life. Well, what's a condition? A condition is simply a basic part of who you are or your job that can sometimes get in your way of living a full, happy, and productive life. That could be something as obvious as being a male versus being a female, old versus being young, poor versus being rich, being single, married, widowed, divorced. Those are personal, obvious conditions. Everybody knows that you have them. And then, of course, there are conditions that are deep down inside. And and only you know that they exist. Maybe that's wrestling with an addiction. You have professional conditions, budget cuts, increasing regulations. So all of us have some type of a condition in our life, and each of these conditions.
It didn't tell me he was here, but I don't think I have him on Twitch.
Obviously, my most apparent
So,
condition is the fact that I was
I
born
don't know.
without arms. The doctors don't know why. We still don't know why, and I don't really want to know why because I can't turn back the clock of time. But if you can imagine, when I was born,
So now I'm
there's a
safe.
lot of shock
Won't
waves
fall off the
in
edge
my
anymore, so
family.
that's good.
My parents were only
Not like I was
27
falling off the
years
edge in
old
the
when
beginning,
they had me.
but still.
They're from a small town of Breeze, which is just about 30 miles down the road from here. They had 3 sons already. I was supposed to be their little girl. So I came into the world not a healthy little girl, but instead a sickly, disabled baby boy, and their lives were turned upside down. There was guilt, there was anger, there was pity, but most of all fear. Because now my family had so many questions staring them in the face, demanding answers, and of course, there were no good ones. But somehow, I believe through the grace of God, they pulled together and began to help me adapt to my adversity. The first time they ever saw me doing any kind of physical adapting to my condition, I was a toddler sitting at home on the kitchen table, playing with toothpicks. And with my left foot, I picked up a toothpick and I studied it. Of course, at that age, everything goes in the mouth, and I licked it. Then I stuck it into a sugar bowl and I rubbed it around and got a lot of sugar on the toothpick. And then I licked the sugar off like a piece of candy. When I was finished, I threw it on the floor. That one gesture gave my family so much hope that I would be able to use my feet for things. And as you can see, I do, whether that's opening a can of soda, pouring a glass of water, getting dressed, typing on a computer, driving a car. My life is a day in and day out challenge of learning what I can do with my feet and learning to live around what I cannot do. I did wear artificial arms for a while as a child, but they were hot, heavy, and cumbersome, and I didn't like to wear them, so I didn't do it for very long. My life has always been this challenge of learning to live around what I can do and what I cannot do. And yes, I'm going to acknowledge to you that there are limitations in the world. I am not some naive motivational speaker who's going to come in here today and tell you to put your chin up and smile and everything is all okay. Believe me, if anybody understands there's limitations in life, it's a guy without arms. I learned a long time ago, even if I had the longest, strongest, toughest pair of arms in the world, there's still only so many things that I could carry, or only so much weight I could bear, or only so high I could reach. I confront limitations day in and day out. For example, I mentioned to you that I can drive a car. Well, I can drive any car as long as it has automatic transmission and power steering. Here's how it works. My right foot operates the gas and brake. My left foot operates the steering wheel, and it's off I drive. Look, Mom, no hands. You had to know that joke was going to show up somewhere. And that's fantastic. I mean, I could drive all over. But if I get out here on Interstate 64 and have a flat tire, I'm not going anywhere. Or think about this limitation. Let's pretend that just you and I are stranded on some desert island. You suddenly get sick and need CPR from me. You're out of luck. I mean, I suppose I could try one of these breathe, sucker, breathe. But I don't think we're going to get anywhere. Are there limits in life? Of course there are limits. The question becomes, what do we do in the midst of our limiting conditions? What do we do in the midst of the limiting conditions? See, I believe our challenge in life, and the reason why I'm here, is to speak of how to help ourselves and to help others live beyond the limits of their conditions to the maximum capacity that they can possibly do. Today, I'm here to tell you a little bit about how I got started in my work, how it has led to my work now as the executive director of the St. Louis Council of the St. Vincent de Paul Society, which is a lay Catholic organization that was founded a number of years ago in Paris, actually, that is dedicated to serving the poor. And I am the executive director of the St. Louis area. Our mission is very simple, just to grow spiritually through service of the poor. And I'll tell you a little bit about that more later. But obviously, an organization, a nonprofit that serves the underprivileged or the deprived depends real heavily upon individuals' contributions and donations. So in our development work, one of our mottos is help us, help others. And I think that that is a very poignant statement, but yet it's just a little bit incomplete. Because in my life, I've come to believe that when you help others, you ultimately help yourself. And that's really what I'm driving at here today. As a child growing up in a disability here in Southern Illinois in a small town, that was pretty difficult. Life in small town America revolves around sports when you're a kid. And if you don't have arms, you can't participate in basketball or football or baseball, you're kind of left on the sidelines of life. Thankfully, though, as a teenager, I was able to be involved with leadership activities in the church. And I participated in these activities quite a bit, whether it was going to dances or going to retreats to learn about developing leadership skills or doing service projects in the community. And over the years in high school, I eventually kind of developed into a leadership role. I was president of our Southern Illinois organization. And upon my election, a couple of youth and the youth minister and I were given the privilege, the opportunity really, to travel and do a humanitarian mission to the third world nation of Haiti. Haiti, as you know, is the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. I believe every teenage American should spend a week in third world poverty. It's a true lesson in gratitude. So at 16 years old, a group of us carted off to Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And of course, you've seen the images of Haiti, especially in the wake of the most devastating earthquake. But this was already in the late 80s when we were there, and the country was even a mess back then. On the first day of our missionary tour, we visited Mother Teresa's Hospital for Children in Port-au-Prince. And this was nothing like a conventional hospital. It really just had 2 rooms, a concrete bunker with a rusty tin roof that sat at the end of a quiet street. We arrived about 8:30 in the morning. The temperature was about 85 degrees. The humidity was very high. And just upon opening up the car door, a warm breeze kicked up the stench of the open sewer. And as I walked into this hospital, the breeze, the sights, and the sounds started snaring the emotions already. I nearly tripped on a baby that was sleeping on a tattered piece of cardboard on a hard, slick concrete floor. And I remember thinking, what is it with these nuns that would let that baby lay there like that? But as I got deeper into the building, I saw that that child was the least of their immediate concerns. The hospital, as I said, consisted of 2 rooms, the sick and the very sick. And each room was packed with about 20 to 30 baby beds, cast iron beds, kind of like a scene from a 1930s or 40s orphanage. And each bed was filled with a little sick hunk of life. Kids that were just mere skin and bones. There was one window in the room. It was dimly lit, flies everywhere, and I could hear coughing and cries of anguish as this one nun administered an IV needle onto the scalp of this child because he didn't have enough muscle tissue in his limbs to support the needle. And I started walking up and down the rows of these baby beds, looking in at these kids with their big brown eyes that just stared off into space. They didn't blink or turn their head to acknowledge my presence. I couldn't tell whether they were drugged, delirious, or just didn't care that I was there. And I just started to be overwhelmed with emotion because I, too, knew what it was like to be in a hospital as a child. At 2 years of age, I spent 2 weeks at the Shriners Hospital in St. Louis to get fitted for artificial limbs and to receive occupational therapy. In those days, parents didn't get to spend the nights with their kids. So as a 2-year-old, it was a strange place, a lot of poking and prodding, and people running around with white coats using a lot of big words that I didn't understand. Each day, my parents would come and visit me, and at the end of the day, of course, they had to leave. My first memory of life is being restrained by a nurse as Mom and Dad would get into the family station wagon and drive away. And each day as Mom and Dad would come back, they'd ask how I was adjusting. The nurses said I was doing fine, but Mom knew that that wasn't true because my voice would be more hoarse from crying myself to sleep that night. And I was reliving all of these thoughts and emotions. The anger started coming back and the fear. And suddenly something grabbed my waist and jerked my mind back into the present moment there in Haiti. And I looked down and it was a little boy well enough to be getting some exercise. He had his arms locked around my waist and his big brown eyes looked up at me and I looked down at him and I could tell one thing was on his mind. He wanted me to pick him up and I couldn't. My eyes wanted to well up with tears. I knew that this child had seen so much pain and suffering in his life that he didn't need to see more from me, and I had to do everything, every visceral thing to block those tears from coming. And he just held tighter and tighter. There were other adults and my fellow youth in the perimeter of the room watching this scene going down, and no one saying anything, no one knowing what to do. And one thought rang in my mind like a bell clanking louder and louder. You don't have the arms to pick him up. You don't have the arms to pick him up. You don't have the arms to pick him up. And I felt totally useless and helpless. We had 8 more days in Haiti just like that, visiting leper colonies, people, families with AIDS, families that literally the floors of their homes were formed by trash in the middle of open sewers. But yet my mind always kept going back to that child in that moment. I just couldn't understand why he had come to me. He had to see these empty sleeves and knew that there were no arms. I remember being on the plane going back to Miami, sitting there and getting more and more restless as we got closer to the United States. I knew family and friends would want to talk about the trip and see the pictures, but I wasn't ready to go back. I hadn't yet reconciled this in my mind. I didn't want to stay in Haiti, but I was caught in this emotional limbo. And as the planes got closer, I kept getting more angry and restless and thinking, you know, God, I thought I was disabled when I didn't know if I
Farm's
could
been
get my
expanded
pants
a
on
bit.
at 10 years old. And I thought that I was handicapped when I didn't know how I was going to drive a car at 16. But here I am, now nearly 18, and this takes the cake. Something so simple as a child who wants support and help, and you don't even give me the ability to do that. I thought I had God backed into a corner. And I lashed out that you're a cruel God. And I dared him to respond. That's not something you want to do at 35,000 feet. Suddenly, the thought hit me like a ton of bricks. The boy didn't want me to pick him up. The boy was hugging me. Something so simple, and I missed it. Preoccupied with my own emotion, my own pain, my own story, and I missed a simple gesture of love by a little impoverished boy who looked past this condition that I had spent so many years trying to get past and touched my heart. Well, I felt like an idiot. I wanted to turn the plane around and go back and let him know that I got it. But just then, the roar of the jet softened and the plane dipped into Miami. The political situation continued to deteriorate in Haiti over the years, and it wasn't safe to go back. But I was resolved somehow to make that right. I talked to my youth minister, and I said, you know, there's got to be a way we can let other people know about the plight of those living in poverty. We put together a slideshow. We made ourselves available to talk to civic groups and church groups about what we had experienced. And one invitation to speak always led to another invitation to speak. And throughout my senior year of high school, we traveled all over the 28 counties of Southern Illinois at any whim just to talk about those in need. And throughout the whole year, some 60 speeches later, we raised about $8,000 that we were able to send back to the hospitals and orphanages. And once I'd done that, I'd stepped into the public light. At this time, self-esteem was a major issue in the classrooms across America. And schools started to ask me to come in and talk about having healthy self-esteem, which I was happy to do. By then, I was in college and needed to declare a major. Since I was communicating, I decided, well, maybe communication was it. So then I decided to go and continue those studies. While in school, at that same Defense Department convention that I mentioned earlier, I met internationally known motivational speaker and author Zig Ziglar, who felt that this story needed to be told further, and he hired me. And I've worked for him, eventually started my own company, working all around the world, helping people bridge that gap between the have-nots and the haves. You see, ladies and gentlemen, that's all of us. We all, in some way or another, have things, and there are other things that we don't have, but yet we all feel that gap in our life. And the question is how do we bridge it? Well, there's volumes written, and the question still remains unanswered completely. But if I were going to give you one thing that I try to do every day to deal with this, it's to always remain faithful and committed to whatever path it is that you're on. Those nuns that I told you about earlier, Mother Teresa, sisters who operated that hospital in Haiti, I've since then done an awful lot of work with them all over the world. They truly run an international organization. 5,000 women strong, 750 facilities around the world, and they do it without a budget. And they don't ask, when they ask you to pray for them, they don't ask that they get more money. They don't ask that poverty goes away. They don't ask that political systems get straightened out. They simply ask that we pray that they remain faithful. And I think that's all of our task, to remain faithful to whatever it is we do, to stay committed, because it is so easy to give up in the midst of any type of adversity. So as you leave here today, I urge you to remain faithful and committed to your path. You see, because between the right foot and the left foot, there's this empty, open, naked space. That's called a possibility. You can go right, you can go left, you can go forward, you can go back. But you won't go anywhere unless you step into it. Thank you.
So the other day I got a message on Facebook that said, "John, I love the message of your videos, but not if it's coming from you. There are choices you've made in your past that render you not qualified to spread such a message." And for me, that was hard to hear, because the hypocritical Christian is something I fear. To be put in a category like that, I could think of nothing worse. So maybe there's something I should have said first. You see, I can't and won't and don't claim to be perfect. In fact, most times I'm not even good. I'll take responsibility for the mistakes I've made and the hurts I've caused. I got more than I probably should. But would God use that against me? Making good coming from my life impossible? Forgives me but refuses to use me? I don't believe in that gospel. I believe in the God of Moses. Moses was an orphan and a murderer with a stutter and a price on his head. Yet God chose this killer to be a fulfiller, performing miracles, leading his people, and making rivers flow red. I believe in the God of David. David, the shepherd boy who turned into a king, a terrible father and an adulterer from the start. Yet even with wrongdoings and iniquity, we remember him as the man after God's own heart. Mary Magdalene was a prostitute, living a life without direction. Matthew was a tax collector, the lowest of the low, yet they both walked and talked and witnessed Christ's perfection. Did God choose the Pharisees? The self-righteous and pompous, full of laws and pretension? Or did he choose cowardly Peter and persecuting Paul to spread the message of Christ's redemption? All these heroes in the Bible, not a one of them was likely. Leaning not on themselves, they leaned on God. And you know what God is? He is mighty. So can God use me, a broken, steaming mess? And can God use him or her or you? I'm here to tell you right now that the answer is yes. God can and will use anybody, even if you only go to church on Christmas. Does he only speak through the preacher? No, God is in a different business, because believing in the Lord isn't living a perfect Walgreens life, always doing right. It's letting his light shine from within and letting his word be your tutor. He'll take your broken past, helping you step into a more hopeful future, because it wasn't for perfection that Jesus died on that cross. It was for the unhealthy, so the sick could serve the sick and seek and save the lost. Because in the end, these words and these lights and these cameras and this video, it's not about me. It's about God. And with God, it's never about who you were, but about who you will be. It's God's story for the world, and we're just playing our parts. So if you're out there feeling not qualified, that's great. Because not qualified is where he starts.
So, like, when my girlfriend's parents ask me what I do for a living, I pull a straight razor out of my back pocket, and I don't tell them I'm a poet. I sure as hell don't tell them I'm an MC, but I pull a straight razor out of my back pocket, and, like, I could lie, right? I could say that I'm a pilot, or a teacher, or a handsome man, or the change that I want to see in the world, or a pipe-smoking grad student. I could go on and on about all the locked doors I can open, or the exotic locales that have crawled up my nose, or the blinding glossiness of my resume paper. I could give them joyful heart attacks. I could Santa Claus their systems, but I don't. I pull a straight razor out of my back pocket. And maybe this is overly dramatic, but I've never been very good at small talk, right? I'm always too busy wondering where interesting scars come from, too busy wondering how many poorly aimed arrows, casual brushes of skin, drownings, or split seconds of eye contact over the past 10,000 years have constructed this moment, too busy imagining the soundtrack to my life, dominated by smiling adult contemporary alternative rockers and saying, no, give me hip-hop dressed in leather, knuckles cracking, because, yo, we could talk about the weather, right? Like, that's easy. We could deaden our colors and round our jagged corners that we may fit more precisely in our own carry-on luggage. I could rattle off a string of pop culture references or rap really, really fast, and we'd all have a good laugh, but I don't. I pull a straight razor out of my back pocket, and just as her father begins to say, okay, so you're a barber? I sliced my little finger off. And they jump back instantly, like characters in a poorly edited student film, their lines caught between their teeth, their eyes staring directly into the camera, levitating with pain. I pick my discarded digit up from off the Olive Garden floor, and with a black Sharpie, I'll skip in my other back pocket, I write my name on it, and I say, give me $10 and I will let you keep this. Not the finger, the moment. Give me $10 as tribute to the truth that we once stood here, that I did something worth remembering, that you on this day witnessed something larger than traffic or storm clouds or time passing for the price of a fancy breakfast. Press your fingertips to the wet cement of my tombstone. Stand in the background of my iconography. It's only $10. Tell my bones they're doing a good job keeping me upright. Tell yourself that this day did not blur by, that this journal entry would be more than an absent-minded doodle. For $10, I will carve my initials into your brain stem. What do I do for a living? I'm an artist, right? I am a turtle without a shell, and I have the scars to prove it. I am pulling myself from the magician's hat night after night, and I have the scars to prove it. I am leaving fragments of my body in every dusty corner of this country, and I have the scars to prove it. Give me $10, and I will show you everything.
A letter to the girl I used to be. Dear Emily, every time I watch baseball, a voice I no longer recognize whispers, Ethan, do you remember? When you were going to be the first girl to play in the Major League Seattle Mariners rally cap. But to be honest, Emily, I don't. Dad told me that like it was someone else's bedtime story. But I do know you had that drive. Didn't let anyone tell you to wear shorts above your knees. Didn't care if boys thought your hair fell on your shoulders just right, but with girls, sleepovers meant the space between your shoulder and hers was a 6-inch fatal territory. The year you turned 11 was the first time you said out loud that you didn't want to live anymore. In therapy, you said you wouldn't make it to 21. On my 21st birthday, I thought about you. You were right. At 19, you started to fade. I tried to cross you out like a line in my memoir I wished I could erase completely. And maybe I'm misunderstanding the definition of death, but even though parts of you still exist, you are not here. Most of my friends have never heard your name until now. I've been trying to write this letter for 6 months. I still can't decide if it should be an apology or not. But now you will never hear Emily Smith announced at a college graduation. Get married. Give birth. When the prescribed testosterone started taking effect, my body stopped producing the potential for new life every month. I thought about your children, how I wanted them too. I let a doctor remove your breasts so that I could stand up straighter. Now, even if I somehow had those children, I wouldn't be able to nourish them. My body is obsolete, scarred cosmetic, but never C-section. I was 4 days late. They will never be grandparents. I was 1 week late. They will never hold their lover's sleeping figure. I was 11 days late. They will never breathe in a sunset and a sunrise in the same night. I was 2 weeks late. They will never learn to jump rope. I was 3 weeks late. They will never shout, "Watch, mommy, watch me on the slide." I was 2 months late. A piece of us will never wrap their arms around our leg for comfort, just to keep them from falling down. And I am sorry that this process is so slow, and all you can do is wonder if you ever had a place. You did. You still do. Don't forget that. Yours, Ethan. P.S. I never hated you.
Introducing the new Apple iPerson complete with multi-touch and volume control. Doesn't it feel good to touch? Doesn't it feel good to touch? Doesn't it feel good to touch? My world is so digital that I have forgotten what that feels like. It used to be hard to connect when friends formed cliques, but it's even more difficult to connect now that cliques form friends. But who am I to judge? I face Facebook more than books face me, hoping to book face-to-faces. I update my status, 420 space to prove I'm still breathing. Failure to do this daily means my whole web-wide world will forget that I exist. But with 3,000 friends online, only 5 I can count in real life. Why wouldn't I spend more time in the world where there are more people that like me? Wouldn't you? Here, it doesn't matter if I'm an amateur person as long as I have a profile. My smile is 50% genuine and 50% genuine
HD. You would need Blu-rays to read the whites of my teeth, but I'm not that focused. 10 tabs open, hoping my problems can be resolved with a 1600 by 1700 revolution. This is a problem with this evolution doubled over. We used to sit in treetops till we swung down to stand upright, then someone slipped a disc. Now we're doubled over at desktops. From the Garden of Eden to the branches of Macintosh, apple picking has always come at a great cost. iPod, iMac, iPhone, iChat, I can do all of these things without making eye contact. We used to sprint to pick and store Blackberries. Now we run to the Sprint store to pick Blackberries. It's scary. I can't hear the sound of Mother Nature speaking over all that tweeting, and along with it is our ability to feel as it's fleeting. You would think these headphone jacks inject in the flesh the way we connect the disconnect power on. So we are powerless. They got us love drugged like e-pills. So we e-trade, email, emotion like e-commerce, because now money can buy love for $9.95 a month. Click to proceed to checkout. Click to X out where our hearts once were. Click, I've uploaded this hug. I hope she gets it. Click, I'm making love to my wife. I hope she's logged in. Click, I'm holding my daughter over a Skype conference call while she's crying in the crib in the next room. Click, so when my phone goes off on my hip, I touch and I touch and I touch, because in a world where there are voices that are only read and laughter is never heard, I'm so desperate to feel that I hope the technology can reverse the universe until the screen can touch me back. And maybe it will when our technology is advanced enough to make us human again.
Noticed that Phil and I have the same last name, and we look kind of vaguely similar to each other. So whenever we travel around together, usually the first question we get asked is whether we're brother and sister. And the answer is no.
No.
And then they want to know if we're married, and the answer is also no.
No.
And then they want to know if we're dating, if we have dated, if we will date, if we're secretly dating, if one of us wants to date the other, but we're scared we'll ruin the friendship, all of which is a resounding no.
Ha! No.
The true story is that I grew up in New York City, and Phil grew up in California on the opposite side of the country, and neither one of us knew that the other person existed until we got to college, and we ended up going to the same university. And in the very first week of our freshman year at college, there was an orientation talent show. And in this talent show, Phil performed spoken word poetry, and I performed spoken word poetry, and that's where we met. And we realized that we had the same last name, and we said, oh, what a weird coincidence. And pretty soon, all of these other weird coincidences started to unravel around us. And at this point in our friendship, we basically got used to all of them. But whenever we go somewhere new, we like to share the story because we think it's at least a little bit of an explanation for what's going on here.
This is all true.
It started with a sweater.
I was looking fly. First day of college orientation as a freshman, and I'm the type of guy who's always trying to make a good impression.
He looked like a tool. And it's the first week of school, so I've got people to meet and things to try. I don't have time to waste on this guy loitering backstage at a talent show.
It started with a freshman talent show, a chance to showcase what I know about spoken word and poetry, try to get some people to notice me.
It started with a technical difficulty.
Some sort of delay.
Somebody's iPod track wouldn't play.
So I'm stuck waiting backstage when I notice this girl.
And he walks over, stupid sweater and all. There was nowhere to run. Backstage was too small.
I'm so nervous about going on stage that I decide to strike up a conversation.
Oh, sorry, I completely got ahead of myself. I totally skipped introductions. My name is Sarah Kay.
My name is Phil Kay. I'm from California.
Born and raised in NYC.
Let's see, fun fact about me.
My mom is Japanese and my dad is Jewish. Not a common combination, but I think it's kind of cute. People call me Japaju.
Japanese.
Ashkenazi, kamikaze.
And come December,
Hanukkah and Christmas. Plus, you should taste my mother's brisket. Jan Kawamura's matzo ball soup with noodles brings my father Jeffrey to his knees.
It took Mom Reiko and Dad Michael to raise this lanky, cockeyed half-breed.
Well, I think that's it. My mom, my dad, and me. Oh, plus my little brother, he's 19.
My little sister is a deadpan firecracker. She's only 19, but she keeps me on track. Part of her name is Sarah.
My brother's name is Philip.
Anyway,
where was I?
It started with a backstage interaction.
No, it started with a backwards first impression.
Okay, well, I'll tell you where it didn't start. It didn't start at 5th grade summer camp.
That's true. It did not start at junior lifeguards, even though
We were both there, which are matching uniforms, red bathing suits, white t-shirts, visors, and our counselor, Mr. Johnson,
who probably figured that the shy girl in his morning class
and the skinny kid in his afternoon class were cousins.
Probably thought we carpooled over together.
In between family photo shoots and 4th of July barbecues.
But instead, we merely coexisted.
Almost met, but always missed it.
Spinning round like two sides of a coin. Look, we've done the research, and we swear we're not related.
And we've never dated.
And we're never, ever
going to. Because what are the chances of finding someone with your last name?
Japanese and Jewish with siblings called the same.
What are the odds of finding someone
who can finish your sentences?
Who will let you cut in line?
Who knows not to just lend a hand or an ear when you need them to give you their spine?
Who is woman enough to be best man at your wedding?
Who will keep every secret, save every letter, tell you how you really look?
Who will remember every single one of your birthdays?
Without checking Facebook.
What are the odds of finding someone who knows your poetry by heart?
Who won't freak out if you're hanging out and accidentally fart?
Yeah, and if you have a date and you need to look fresh, I will let you borrow my hair products.
And if you don't have a date and you need to look fresh, I will let you borrow my cousin.
I will always see you for the alley-oop.
I will always save you a seat.
I will always pick you to be my partner, even though you are terrible at handball.
When the fire takes all you have, my home will be your home.
When you are old and can no longer remember my face, I will meet you for the first time again and again.
When they make fun of your accent, I will take you swimming, because we all sound the same underwater.
When Ellis Island tries to erase your past, I will call you by your real name.
When they call your number for the draft, I will enlist to fight beside you.
And I will march with you from Selma to Montgomery and back as many times as it takes.
We will stand together against the hoses and the dogs, because it didn't start with us.
It started with Lennon and McCartney.
It started with Thelma and Louise.
Winnie the Pooh and Christopher Robin.
Bert and Ernie.
Abbott and Costello.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Mario and Luigi.
Watson and Sherlock.
Pikachu and Charizard. And they could tell you what a miracle this is.
They could tell you how rare this is.
But they could tell you how rare friendship always is.
The chances are slim.
The cards are always stacked against you. The odds are always low.
But I have seen the best of you and the worst of you, and I choose both.
I want to share every single one of your sunshines and save some for later.
I will tuck them into my pockets so I can give them back to you when the rains fall hard.
Friend, I want to be the mirror that reminds you to love yourself.
I want to be the air in your lungs that reminds you to breathe easy.
When the walls come down.
When the thunder rumbles.
When nobody else is home. Hold my hand, and I promise I won't let go.
I knew exactly what love looked like in 7th grade.
Even though I hadn't met Love yet, if Love had wandered into my homeroom, I would have recognized him at first glance. Love wore a hemp necklace.
I would have recognized her at first glance. Love wore a tight French braid.
Love played acoustic guitar and knew all my favorite Beatles songs.
Love wasn't afraid to ride the bus with me. And I knew.
I just must be searching the wrong classrooms.
Just must be checking the wrong hallways. She was there. I was sure of it.
If only I could find him.
But when Love finally showed up, she had a bowl cut.
He wore the same clothes every day for a week.
Love hated the bus.
Love didn't know anything about the Beatles. Instead,
every time I tried to kiss Love,
our teeth got in the way. Love became the reason I lied to my parents.
I'm going to Ben's house.
Love had terrible rhythm on the dance floor, but made sure we never missed a slow song.
Love waited by the phone because she knew if her father picked up, it would be...
Hello? Hello? I guess they hung up.
And Love grew.
Stretched like a trampoline.
Love changed.
Love disappeared. Slowly. Like baby teeth. Losing parts of me I thought I needed.
Love vanished like an amateur magician. Everyone could see the trap door but me.
Like a flat tire. There were other places I had planned on going, but my plans didn't matter. Love stayed away for years. And when Love finally reappeared, I barely recognized him.
Love smelled different now, had darker eyes.
A broader back. Love came with freckles I didn't recognize.
New birthmarks, a softer voice.
Now there were new sleeping patterns.
New favorite books.
Love had songs that reminded him of someone else.
Songs Love didn't like to listen to. So did I. But we found a park bench that fit us perfectly.
We found jokes that make us laugh.
And now, Love makes me fresh homemade chocolate chip cookies.
But Love will probably finish most of them for a midnight snack.
Love looks great in lingerie, but still likes to wear her retainer.
Love is a terrible driver, but a great navigator.
Love knows where she's going. It just might take her 2 hours longer than she planned.
Love is messier now.
Not as simple.
Love uses the word boobs in front of my parents.
Love chews too loud.
Love leaves the cap off the toothpaste.
Love uses smiley faces in her text messages.
And turns out, Love shits. But Love also cries. And Love will tell you you are beautiful.
And mean it.
Over and over again.
You are beautiful.
When you first wake up.
You are beautiful.
When you've just been crying.
You are beautiful.
When you don't want to hear it.
You are beautiful.
When you don't believe it.
You are beautiful.
When nobody else will tell you.
You are beautiful.
Love still thinks you are beautiful.
But Love is not perfect and will sometimes forget.
When you need to hear it most, you are beautiful. Do not forget this.
Love is not who you were expecting. Love is not what you can predict.
Maybe Love is in New York City, already asleep. You are in California, Australia, wide awake. Maybe Love is always in the wrong time zone.
Maybe Love is not ready for you. Maybe you are not ready for Love.
Maybe Love just isn't the marrying type.
Maybe the next time you see Love is 20 years after the divorce. Love looks older now, but just as beautiful as you remember.
Maybe Love is only there for a month.
Maybe Love is there for every firework, every birthday party, every hospital visit.
Maybe Love stays.
Maybe Love can't. Maybe Love shouldn't. Love arrives exactly when Love is supposed to. And Love leaves exactly when Love must.
When Love arrives, say,
welcome. Make yourself comfortable. If Love leaves, ask her to leave the door open behind her.
Turn off the music. Listen to the quiet.
Whisper. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
You Australians are too nice. Sit down.
We see the story of Jesus going to the cross, and everything seems to kind of be hand in hand. And then there's this one character that seems to interrupt the narrative. His name's Barabbas. We don't even know much about him except that he's a murderer, a leader of an insurrection, a rebel. And why he's even mentioned, sometimes I'm not so sure. It's like, what? This is about Jesus going to the cross. So in this moment, Pilate thinks, I hold the destinies of these two men in my hand. I know the Jews have a tradition that on a holy day, I will release one of the prisoners on death row. Pilate stands on this audacious stage, who now presents Jesus, Son of the living God, versus Barabbas, the thug and rebel. He says, all right, who do you want? This is blasphemy. This has gone too far. There's no comparison. This is a rightful prisoner, a man who should be on death row. He's a rebel against Rome. He leads a rebellion. He murders people. He's a bad man. He's a thug and he's a crook. He deserves the chains and he deserves the crucifixion. Jesus? What has he done but heal, restore, deliver, set free, open blind eyes, open deaf ears, heal the lame and the leper? What has Jesus done? Who do you want? We want Barabbas. Yeah, give us Barabbas. People say, give us Barabbas. The Roman soldiers come up and they put the key in and they unlock Barabbas from his chains and shackles. And he walks down the platform, welcomed by all of his thug friends. Yeah, the people love me. Yeah, that's right. I don't even know who this Jesus guy is, but all I know is my people love me. There seems to be no conscience of Barabbas. There's no record of him turning to Jesus and saying, I owe you everything now, for you have set me free. No, I don't see any of that in Barabbas. And God knew that. Jesus stood there, silent, for he knew the will of the Father. He said, it's fine, Father. Let him have Barabbas. For Jesus knew that the Father would have to treat Jesus like Barabbas so he could treat Barabbas like Jesus. Barabbas thought it was the people that set him free. No, 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 no. It was the love of the Heavenly Father. When I look at the story, I realize who Barabbas really is. That's me. That's you. That's us. And I felt, I was reading this the other day, and I felt God speak to me. I love Barabbas. I love him. But God, he's a bad man. I love him. And I wanted him to go free. But didn't you know that he probably would have never acknowledged the free gift? Yeah, but I love Barabbas. For while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. God sent his son for Barabbas, even the one he knew would walk away from Jesus and his free gift and never come back. He loves him. And the nerve, the gall, and the audacity of believers to think, I got saved by grace, but now that I'm in this deep, dark place of bondage, I better work hard to get myself out. What? That's the opposite of the gospel. Are you bound? Are you held under the power of this temptation, this sin? You feel like it's controlling you? What are you gonna do? I'm gonna shake myself free. Stop it! No, you won't. You're no match for the powers of hell and the urges of sin. You will not overcome it, and you will never overcome it. You'll just be another statistic. There's no answer within yourself. Your own marriage, your own goodness, your own discipline, your own devotion will not save your marriage and will not save your kids. There's only one, and he's the one that took your place. He's the one that stood silently on the platform with Pilate and said, yes, let him have Barabbas. Take me. How many times have I stood on that platform with Pilate and Jesus, and I'm the Barabbas, and they start to take my chains off, and I say, no, no, I deserve this. I deserve the guilt. I deserve the shame. I deserve the consequence. I deserve it. Jesus seems to look at me and say, no, son, Let me have it. Let me have your sin. Let me have your pain. No, God, I did it to myself. I deserve it. My marriage won't make it. This is what I deserve. I deserve divorce. I deserve poverty. I deserve sickness. I deserve it all. No! God, I'm so ashamed. Give me your shame. But God, what if I do it again? I'll still be here. Oh, God, I don't want to hurt you. I love you. I don't want to do this anymore. Give me your sins, son.
I had
This is
a
all
bunch
we
of
got.
wood. Oh, I burnt it all. That's right.
It's all I got. It's all you got. We can play games. We can play church games. We can pretend like some people are better than others and that's why they're blessed, or we can all come to the honest conclusion that it's God. And it's God alone. The greatest challenge is not your discipline, your devotion, your focus. Your greatest challenge is believing the gospel. Could it be that there's a God with a love so scandalous, so wide, so deep, so vast, so high, so expansive, so welcoming, so inclusive? Let me have your sin, son. Okay. When I give him my sin, and I stand in this empty space of forgiveness and acceptance while Jesus walks off to the cross that I deserve. I see him walking to the post to be whipped. As I stand a free man, all the attention is turned now. And I feel the love of God saying, go, son, live your life. I'll pay the price. Where did we get off? Thinking that we were gonna set ourselves free. It's still Jesus. It'll always be Jesus. It'll never stop being the power of Jesus. If his blood is sufficient for your salvation, his blood is sufficient to sustain you through every challenge and every sin and every temptation. Jesus is enough.
What if I told you Jesus came to abolish religion? What if I told you voting Republican really wasn't his mission? What if I told you Republican doesn't automatically mean Christian, and just because you call some people blind doesn't automatically give you vision? I mean, if religion is so great, why has it started so many wars? Why does it build huge churches but fails to feed the poor? Tell single moms God doesn't love them if they've ever had a divorce, but in the Old Testament, God actually calls religious people whores. Religion might preach grace, but another thing they practice. Tend to ridicule God's people. They did it to John the Baptist. They can't fix their problems, and so they just mask it, not realizing religion's like spraying perfume on a casket. See, the problem with religion is it never gets to the core. It's just behavior modification, like a long list of chores. Like, let's dress up the outside, make it look nice and neat. But it's funny, that's what they used to do to mummies while the corpse rots underneath. Now, I ain't judging. I'm just saying, quit putting on a fake look. Because there's a problem if people only know that you're a Christian by your Facebook. I mean, in every other aspect of life, you know that logic's unworthy. It's like saying you play for the Lakers just because you bought a jersey. See, this was me too, but no one seemed to be onto me. Acting like a church kid while addicted to pornography. See, on Sunday I'd go to church, but Saturday getting faded, acting if I was simply created to just have sex and get wasted. See, I spent my whole life building this facade of neatness, but now that I know Jesus, I boast in my weakness. Because if grace is water, then the church should be an ocean. It's not a museum for good people, it's a hospital for the broken, which means I don't have to hide my failure, I don't have to hide my sin. Because it doesn't depend on me, it depends on him. See, because when I was God's enemy, and certainly not a fan, he looked down and said, I want that man. Which is why Jesus hated religion, and for it he called them fools. Don't you see so much better than just following some rules? Now let me clarify. I love the church, I love the Bible, and yes, I believe in sin. But if Jesus came to your church, would they actually let him in? See, remember he was called a glutton and a drunkard by religious men. But the Son of God never supports self-righteousness, not now, not then. Now back to the point, one thing is vital to mention. How Jesus and religion are on opposite spectrums. See, one's the work of God, but one's a man-made invention. See, one is the cure,
Grow,
but the
my
other's the
forest,
infection.
grow.
See, because religion says do, Jesus says done. Religion says slave, Jesus says son. Religion puts you in bondage, while Jesus sets you free. Religion makes you blind, but Jesus makes you see. And that's why religion and Jesus are two different clans. Religion is man searching for God. Christianity is God searching for man. Which is why salvation is freely mine, and forgiveness is my own. Not based on my merits, but Jesus' obedience alone. Because he took the crown of thorns and the blood dripped down his face. He took what we all deserved. I guess that's why you call it grace. And while being murdered, he yelled, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Because when he was dangling on that cross, he was thinking of you. And he absorbed all your sin and he buried it in the tomb, which is why I'm kneeling at the cross saying, come on, there's room. So for religion, no, I hate it. In fact, I literally resent it. Because when Jesus said, it is finished, I believe he meant it.
Question is, are there more than 278 blocks here? Yep. A bit more.
The world's first doctor was a mother who diagnosed her patients asking the question, can you show me where it hurts? And we staged sold-out concerts singing our pain as if the melody itself could explain the cure. Medicine's first prescription was a kiss. This is still practiced today. Practiced on the scrapes of children who play just a little too hard. Once broken skin, now scarred and worn as a medal of bravery, we paid our hospital bills with our hearts. Our medical charts read like apologies. Please accept these simple words as payment. But we did not yet know the words, I love you. Our first attempt was an invention. It sounded a lot like, thank you. The heart became a metaphor. If our body said enough, our hearts roared more. The heart became the core of our spirit, the seat of our emotion. Currents and undertows of passion swelling within an ocean of feeling. We cast out our dreams and began reeling in our desires. Our heartstrings were wires trolling for love. I've known those who wear their heart like a boxing glove, ready to knock out each next contender, to render them weak-kneed and falling, corners calling for timeouts as each fan rises to their feet and shouts, get up, fight. But what happens when there's no fight left? When a heart is bereft of the will it takes to continue beating, when the beats begin cheating, skipping like a broken record, like a skipping like a broken record, like a skipping like a broken record, like a broken record, and the volume falls from a yell to a whisper.
So
each beat less sure than the last. Each silence a vast expanse where echoes hold no lease, where rhythms police themselves, arresting the unfamiliar as if they were the usual suspects. How many times did love become subtext to stories that started with the question, can you show me where it hurts? And how many times did we point to bruises or skinned knees? How many times did we beg, please, please make it better? This poem is brought to you by the question, why? Why is where a less important question? Where does it hurt? Why have we been stacking how upon how, like now when we ask how many mothers, how many aunts and sisters, how many daughters and cousins, how many grandmothers,
How many others hold their hearts in their throats, choking on last goodbyes and not knowing what to say? How many fathers pray for hope? How many sons cannot comfort brothers who cannot cope with the loss of those who gave them life? How many husbands will lose a wife this year? How many? It is not a number we wish to know. We throw our love at death, hoping that through an act of sheer will, we can make it not true. I've known men willing to do anything just for a chance to bring you a tomorrow. Boys who would gladly borrow false hope if it meant that just for a moment they could believe everything will be okay. Uncles who stay at the bedside of nieces, mothers who collect the pieces of their daughters' broken hearts and build cathedrals of stained glass, begging light to pass through this moment and keep the shadows at bay for just a few seconds longer. I have witnessed no hearts stronger than those that weep openly at the altars of love, family, and friendship. We grip at our hearts, not out of sympathy, not out of pity or charity. We grip at our chest because this is where we care from. Each heart is a drum beating from underneath a concert hall of skin and bone. And as one lone drum sets for us the tempo, we all of us echo in harmony. We grip at our chests and sound off like a symphony of red alerts. It is a show of solidarity. This is where it hurts.
Now that is how you gather wood.
Do you know what depression feels like? It feels like 1,000-pound weight holding your body down in a pool of water, barely reaching your chin. So no matter how bad your neck hurts, you gotta keep your head up to survive. It's looking at the sky, seeing how far away heaven is from you right now. It's how much you hate now. And every second after it. It's the feeling after you realize that one thing that you want so passionate is drifting past your tips. And each time you reach to grab it, you get a mouthful of water and you sacrifice drowning. Depression is the pressure bouncing against your chest. Asthmatic, air keeps seeping in, even though I don't want to breathe again. Depression is finally falling asleep and waking up so pissed off for no apparent reason in the morning. It's a constant state of mourning when the only thing that died is your pride, is pushing everybody that loves you as far away from you as humanly possible, because I don't deserve them. Desert them before they desert me. It's quicksand sinking. It's feeling alone in a room full of people. It's all right. Yeah, I'm okay. No, really, I'm good. It's applying a clown face and pretending everything is cool and content when you know you will explode any minute. Depression is 4 hydrocodones, 2 X pills, and a poetry show. Feeling like the biggest hypocrite in the world. It's tears that'll never fall from your cheek. Fear of adding to the water I'm already chin deep in. Yeah, I wanna die, but not that way. Maybe Kurt Cobain like, possibly Chris Benoit type, partly Chris Farley. Feeling like the biggest clown in the smallest circus, worthless. When will my best be good enough anyway? It's being afraid of being alone with your own thoughts in an empty apartment, but not wanting anyone around you. It's going to the bathroom in total darkness, not wanting to see your own reflection. It's taking 5 showers a day at least and still not feeling clean. Depression is the demon at the bottom of a Zoloft bottle. Depression is the reason I called into work today, and yesterday, and the day before that, and the day before. I could get 100 hours of sleep and still feel tired as hell. Searching for a clear definition of self. It's the thanks for nothing look you give the people who tell you to pray and everything will be okay. But the only explanation is crazy. But you wouldn't call me crazy. If you knew how much I hate me. It's biting your nails till your fingers bleed. It's steadily grinding your teeth. Depression is the reason this poem has no ending.
Needing gate also, so on top of all this. Gate.
Mr. Shane Koizan.
I was raised by my grandparents. Now, the three things you need to know about my granddad are number one, and probably most important, he had an intense love for beef jerky. Two, he had the kind of temper that could be likened to a levee bursting apart on a hot, dry day. A cachet of anger stored away for any given moment on any given day. My grandmother used to say he was one half volcano and one half hurricane. A handful of excuses and a gut full of pain. And because of this, we come to number three. My granddad had a way with monsters. As a child, I slept in a bedroom full of them. A closet stuffed with long-legged demons who could make it from one end of the room to the other in a single step. My strep throat silence was born from night terrors. When screaming was not enough, so I instead kicked the wall. Drew my first remembered breath the moment I heard thunder storm down the hall, then burst through my door like a war on its way to a peace protest. My granddad would rest his hands on his hips, let his fingertips grip his boxers and lift them up past his waist. Standing like a superhero in the doorway, he would split the night with a whisper and say, "All right, you motherfuckers. I swear to Christ, I will turn on a goddamn light. Never has any monster ever heard a battle cry more terrifying than I will turn on a light." And every night for more than 4 years, my granddad took boogeymen by the ears and threw them out on their asses, dragged the carcasses of dead monsters out of my room, grabbed a broom and swept what was left of my nightmares into a dustpan, emptied them into a trash can, then turned around to say, "Sweet dreams, my boy. Be down the hall if you need me." We were sidekicks. I'd sound the alert, and my granddad would put the hurt on whatever was hiding under my bed or lurking in my closet. He deposited his foot so deep into the asses of gargoyles that when they finally turned back into stone, he could wear them as platform boots to a Kiss concert. My granddad used to wear a red polo shirt to bed. He said it used to be white. But one night when I was 4, he busted down my bedroom door and had to kick some ass because I was screaming. Now he wears it as a warning, teaching nighttime there are some things far worse than morning. A night terror differs from a nightmare in that the dreamer will awake and take terror with them back into consciousness. Add to this the fact that the dreamer rarely recalls what they dreamt, and that any attempt to wake them usually ends unsuccessfully. I know this now, but think constantly how my granddad had to just stand there, wait for it to end, and believe everything was gonna be okay. How the following day he'd pretend not to be tired. An alarm clock wired into fears I could not recall. He'd wake and thunder down the hall doing the very best he could. He'd be there. An anchor pulling me back from the somewhere I could not escape. As a child I learned not every hero wears a cape.
Not everyone gets a ticker tape parade just for having patience. Not everyone has the strength needed to stand there, wait for it to end, and believe everything's going to be okay. Not everyone has the courage to say or do nothing when a child is screaming, dreaming of eternity in a room with no doors, no floors to keep you from falling further into panic. Each once small fear suddenly titanic in its implications. Situations so far beyond grotesque. I would have amputated my own imagination just to make them stop. But at the end of each one, he'd be there. And he'd say, "Close your eyes. I'm going to turn on a light." He'd invite me back to consciousness with a tired smile. The next day, he would sit on the sofa before dinner and say, "I just need to rest my eyes." My quest to end night terrors was born from the night he ended up falling asleep at the wheel and driving at full speed into a snowbank. My one-man think tank kicked into overdrive. And for 5 nights in a row, my granddad slept soundly. Free from worry, we watched the light return to his eyes as if it had just come back from some long vacation. But on night number 6, the kicks against the bedroom wall made thunder storm down the hall once more. He stood in the doorway, ready to wage war, ready to restore light to darkness, to dismiss shadows, to land heavy-handed blows, Muhammad Ali combos that would give monsters pause to reconsider the options. Get up or stay down. Stay down. That night, he was hungry for a first-round knockout. He was about to go through his usual checklist of monster hiding spots when I said, "No, it's okay. Go back to bed." With renewed enthusiasm, he looked at me and said, "Nonsense. These assholes have to pay." And I remember the way he dropped to his knees, stuck his head under my bed and said, "What the fuck is all of my beef jerky doing under here?" I explained to him my not so brilliant plan. I said, "I thought if I kept them fed, they'd leave me alone and you could get a good night's sleep." Slow but deep, his lips crept across his face, then cracked open into laughter. After a childhood of expecting only anger, he laid down on the ground, his lungs kicking at his chest. Every suppressed joy suddenly brought to the surface. This is the first time I can recall hearing my granddad laugh. Some thoughts are kept in closets, hanging next to skeletons and boogeymen. Sometimes when we believe in monsters, they take up residence under our beds. Our heads fill with the dread needed to keep them fed. We tread our own fear because we somehow thought it was better off being kept secret. It should come as no surprise that some hearts are like dark bedrooms, tombs that we allowed ourselves to shut because we thought that way everything will be all right. I think about my granddad's laugh. I think often about that night. About how some people are waiting for people like us to slide our hands against their walls and say, "Close your eyes. I'm going to turn on a light."
Oh, I don't like that my escape and my tilde key are so close together.
There's so many of you. When I was a kid, I hid my heart under the bed because my mother said, if you're not careful, someday someone's gonna break it. Take it from me, under the bed is not a good hiding spot. I know because I've been shot down so many times, I get altitude sickness just from standing up for myself. But that's what we were told. Stand up for yourself. That's hard to do if you don't know who you are. We were expected to define ourselves at such an early age. And if we didn't do it, others did it for us. Geek, fatty, slut, fag. And at the same time we were being told what we were being asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always thought that was an unfair question. It presupposes that we can't be what we already are. We were kids. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a man. I wanted a registered retirement savings plan that would keep me in candy long enough to make old age sweet. When I was a kid, I wanted to shave. Now, not so much. When I was 8, I wanted to be a marine biologist. When I was 9, I saw the movie Jaws and thought to myself, no thank you. When I was 10, I was told that my parents left because they didn't want me. When I was 11, I wanted to be left alone. When I was 12, I wanted to die. When I was 13, I wanted to kill a kid. When I was 14, I was asked to seriously consider a career path. I said, I'd like to be a writer. And they said, choose something realistic. So I said, professional wrestler. And they said, don't be stupid. See, they asked me what I wanted to be, then told me
What part of it's kick-ass, Midori?
And I wasn't the only one. We were being told that we somehow must become what we are not, sacrificing what we are to inherit the masquerade of what we will be. I was being told to accept the identity that others will give me. And I wondered what made my dreams so easy to dismiss. Granted, my dreams are shy because they're Canadian. My dreams are self-conscious and overly apologetic. They're standing alone at the high school dance and they've never been kissed. See, my dreams got called names too. Silly, foolish, impossible. But I kept dreaming. I was gonna be a wrestler. I had it all figured out. I was gonna be the garbage man. My finishing move was gonna be the trash compactor. My saying was gonna be, I'm taking out the trash. And then this guy, Duke the Dumpster Drosy, stole my entire shtick. I was crushed, as if by a trash compactor. I thought to myself, what now? Where do I turn? Poetry. Like a boomerang, the thing I loved came back to me. One of the first lines of poetry I can remember writing was in response to a world that demanded I hate myself. From age 15 to 18, I hated myself for becoming the thing that I loathed, a bully. When I was 19, I wrote, I will love myself despite the ease with which I lean toward the opposite. Standing up for yourself doesn't have to mean embracing violence. When I was a kid, I traded in homework assignments for friendship, then gave each friend a late slip for never showing up on time, and in most cases, not at all. I gave myself a hall pass to get through each broken promise. And I remember this plan born out of frustration from a kid who kept calling me Yogi, then pointed to my tummy and said, too many picnic baskets. Turns out it's not that hard to trick someone. And one day before class, I said, yeah, you can copy my homework. And I gave him all the wrong answers that I'd written down the night before. He got his paper back expecting a near-perfect score and couldn't believe it when he looked across the room at me and held up a 0. I knew I didn't have to hold up my paper of 28 out of 30, but my satisfaction was complete when he looked at me puzzled and I thought to myself, smarter than the average bear, motherfucker.
I don't even know what I want to do next after I get this started.
This is who I am.
Gonna have
This
to
is
start
how I
getting
stand up for
Redstone at some
myself.
point.
When I was a kid,
So I think I'm gonna
I
need
used to think that
compressed
pork chops
sand.
and karate chops were the same thing. I thought they were both pork chops. And because my grandmother thought it was cute and because they were my favorite, she let me keep doing it. Not really a big deal. One day, before I realized fat kids are not designed to climb trees, I fell out of a tree and bruised the right side of my body. I didn't want to tell my grandmother about it because I was scared I'd get in trouble for playing somewhere I shouldn't have been. A few days later, the gym teacher noticed the bruise and I got sent to the principal's office. From there, I was sent to another small room with a really nice lady who asked me all kinds of questions about my life at home. I saw no reason to lie. As far as I was concerned, life was pretty good. I told her whenever I'm sad, my grandmother gives me karate chops.
Alright, so I need a lot of compressed dust.
This led to a full-scale investigation. And I was removed from the house for 3 days. Until they finally decided to ask how I got the bruises. News of this silly little story quickly spread through the school and I earned my first nickname, Pork Chop. To this day, I hate pork chops. I'm not the only kid who grew up this way. Surrounded by people who used to say that rhyme about sticks and stones. As if broken bones hurt more than the names we got called, and we got called them all. So we grew up believing no one would ever fall in love with us, that we'd be lonely forever, that we'd never meet someone to make us feel like the sun was something they built for us in their tool shed. So broken heartstrings bled the blues, we tried to empty ourselves so we'd feel nothing. Don't tell me that hurts less than a broken bone. That an ingrown life is something surgeons can cut away, that there's no way for it to metastasize, it does. She was 8 years old, our first day of grade 3 when she got called ugly. We both got moved to the back of class so we would stop getting bombarded by spitballs. But the school halls were a battleground. We found ourselves outnumbered day after wretched day. We used to stay inside for recess because outside was worse. Outside, we'd have to rehearse running away or learn to stay still like statues and give you no clues that we were there in grade 5. They taped a sign to the front of her desk that read, "Beware of dog." To this day, despite a loving husband, she doesn't think she's beautiful because of a birthmark that takes up a little less than half her face. Kids used to say she looks like a wrong answer that someone tried to erase but couldn't quite get the job done. And they'll never understand that she's raising 2 kids whose definition of beauty begins with the word mom. Because they see her heart before they see her skin, because they've never always been amazing. He was a broken branch grafted onto a different family tree. Adopted. Not because his parents opted for a different destiny. He was 3 when it became a mixed drink of 1 part left alone and 2 parts tragedy. Started therapy in 8th grade. Had a personality made up of tests and pills. Lived like the uphills were mountains and the downhills were cliffs. 4/5 suicidal, a tidal wave of antidepressants, and an adolescent being called pauper. 1 part because of the pills, 99 parts because of the cruelty. He tried to kill himself in grade 10 when a kid who could still go home to mom and dad had the audacity to tell him, "Get over it." As if depression is something that could be remedied by any of the contents found in a first aid kit. To this day, he has a stick of TNT lit from both ends.
So,
describe to in detail
it's
the way
about
the
the
sky
end of
bends
this
in the moment
video.
before it's about to fall.
Got a lot done today. We moved everything that was in the center here to the outskirts. Built ourselves a nice little house over here. We've got an infinite water supply so that we can make all of the clay that we need to. Got a ton of storage over here in these shelves and easy dirt making over here. Just refill these real quick. Let's just grab from the chest here and make more. Expanded the farm over here a little bit. Pushed it back further. Not sure what we're going to plant in the back rows yet. But we've got a little bit more over there now. Smeltery area really hasn't changed. I haven't done too much with that yet. Not really getting more into that until I can get redstone and start making some auto hammers and things like that so we can start making a lot of the processes quicker. I'm starting to work on a farm over here, but I haven't really completed it yet. That's going to be the next task for the next video. So, until next time, Have a good day and enjoy your time.